right. This is... No. Go a little bit this way. That's good. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the Josh and...
Tyler.
That was a little awkward. The Josh and Tyler Show.
You didn't tell me you were going to do that.
Well, I didn't know I was going to do it until like a second ago.
Okay, well then what are you throwing me under the bus for?
Well, you know, just be like, the Josh and Tyler. Yeah, never mind. Anyway, that was like more awkward than my entire life.
Okay, you guys know you're in for a good video after that.
So today, Tyler, you want to introduce the video?
Yeah, considering...
I'm sorry, I just watched that whole intro thing.
No, that's, that actually might be one of the best intros we've had. You should really keep this in here.
Oh, it definitely stays in. Nothing gets cut.
Okay, I'm glad you're letting me introduce this, because I introduced this to you.
Yes.
There are so many times where you see a video essay or a review about a movie that, for a variety of reasons, never actually got made.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of mystery and intrigue surrounding what those movies would have been about, who would have been in them, what it would have felt like. I think it goes without saying we have very particular choices in ours. You're more of a superhero guy. I'm more of an animation guy, because both of those types of movies are very expensive and very difficult to make.
Yeah. So basically, we're talking about canceled movies. Movies that either never got made, either were never made in the original form that were set to, they could have been rebooted by different actors, directors, writers, or just films that straight up were just concepts from directors that literally were a script. So, yeah. I'm going to just get my notes. I have a lot of notes today.
Nice shit.
I know, right?
Wow.
It's
turning into me.
Well,
and I don't even bring notes for these videos, which is why I feel like I keep stumbling on half of them.
Hey, you can use your phone. It's okay.
Well, I have my phone for stuff. Don't get me wrong. Because there are some details that are just so out of left field in my top two choices especially that I just could not go without listing these off.
So I got a couple. Do you have any honorable mentions of ones you're like, that sounds cool, but it didn't
Yeah,
solidify?
I do have a few honorable mentions. There's one that was a Charlie Chaplin talkie called The Freak.
Okay.
About this one girl who randomly sprouts angel wings. And she gets put on trial for being, I don't know, deformed or whatever. I have no idea what Chaplin was trying to accomplish with this movie. I have no idea if he had a starring role. All I know is I kind of wanted to see if it would have that King Kong effect where the effects would hopefully stand the test of time, or at least be a little more innovative than the effects that we're used to nowadays. Yeah. Maybe they would have put stop motion on the wings. Maybe they would have puppeteered them. I'm not entirely sure. It would have been probably a preachy, ugly duckling story, but given the fact that that was new territory back then, it would have made a little bit more sense.
And Chaplin would have made it a little less cliche. He would have brought something to it that'd be different.
Hopefully. Me being an animation fan, I read about Brad Bird trying to adapt the comic book The Spirit. But back then, studios would say no because they didn't believe that mainstream animated movies could be strictly for adults. So when Frank Miller did the Sin City treatment of The Spirit, wow.
Yeah, that was not great.
Yeah. And my last one, Terry Gilliam has made so many unrealized projects. At least I didn't put any of them on my list.
There's a lot. I looked at the list and I'm like,
there are just way too many choices you can go with. But one honorable mention that I would have been interested in, even though I'm not a huge Terry Gilliam fan, he was one of the original directors to try to adapt Watchmen. But because they couldn't, as per usual, afford the funds that he needed for the movie, he deemed it unfilmable. They tried handing it to Darren Aronofsky, which would have been
I would have watched it.
Would have been a surreal and trippy superhero movie. I'd be all for that. But he gave up on that one. They offered it to Paul Greengrass for whatever reason. I cannot see that happening even remotely because Paul Greengrass doesn't even like CGI. So I'm not really sure what he was going to try and accomplish.
Paul Greengrass doesn't like CGI, but he doesn't want you to see what's going on either.
No, he does not.
It's all about the mystery. One that I saw out there was, I saw that Sam Raimi was attached to direct the World of Warcraft movie in 2012.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it eventually came out directed by someone else, and it was okay, but
Yeah.
I think Sam Raimi would have done a pretty cool job.
See, I've never seen a Duncan Jones movie, so I can't really know for sure. All I know is that he's Bowie's kid.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know.
And then the other one here, while we're on the topic of Gillian, he was offered to direct The Philosopher's Stone and The Half-Blood Prince, but the studios decided not to go with him. You made a fatal mistake.
Well,
Let him direct The Half-Blood Snooze Fest.
Yeah, so like J.K. Rowling wanted him specifically to direct Philosopher's Stone because she was such a big Monty Python fan and she liked his movies, but because dude had this false reputation as an unreliable director that probably factored into it. Plus, I think Chris Columbus was a safe but still really good choice. Safe in the fact that like dude made movies centered around kids. He knows how to direct kids, even though the child performances aren't the greatest in Philosopher's Stone, but everything else is so good about it then that you can completely ignore that.
But when it came to Half-Blood Prince, they offered it to him. He said no. He said to Warner Brothers, they had their chance, they blew it. It's a factory job, etc.
Yeah, and there is one unmade version of Harry Potter that I find very fascinating that's not on my list.
Which one?
Spielberg wanted to make this into an animated movie with Haley Joel Osment as Harry. This was before J.K. Rowling had that only British rule. I think that was before she really had any power as to what the adaptation could be like.
I mean, I think that would have been neat. I think we could have had it sort of like the Lord of the Rings animated adaptation, like they had back in the 70s.
Higher quality version of the Ralph Bakshi.
But yeah, it would have been sort of like that situation where we were like, they're both pretty good.
Yeah,
no complaints.
I would definitely think so. I think that just played into Spielberg's idea that this wouldn't have worked in live action because the effects weren't up to par at that point. Knowing Spielberg nowadays, I'm sure his sentiments towards that have completely gone away.
Yeah, he just sort of makes whatever he wants. But yeah, those are our honorable mentions. So Tyler, last time you started first, or I started first, so you get to go first. Give me one that you want to have happen.
Well, this is actually one that made me think of this list to begin with. I was listening to the Joe Rogan Experience, and his guest was Rob Zombie.
Okay.
Whose movies I've never seen, and not really.
His movie's okay. I didn't mind it.
And I'm not really in a rush to see them, just because that incredibly grisly, jump cutty handheld style that's not really Paul Greengrass, but has some similarities.
Did he make 3 from Hell?
Yes, he did.
I enjoyed that movie very much.
And also just how gross and gory his movies are. Gore's not really for me.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm amazed that I liked Possessor as much as I did, but it wasn't excessively gory. It was kind of a psychological horror mixed in with body horror.
Tyler's got a review of Possessor up on his channel right now. Go check it out.
Probably the uncut edition of Possessor, which is only like a 5-minute difference, but I'm assuming it makes a huge difference.
Go check that out. Great review. I've watched that myself. Haven't seen it, but the review's great.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I didn't invite you.
Hey, it's okay.
But anyways, I love listening to Rob Zombie because despite his grisly appearance, dude seems like a very well thought of individual who doesn't have a ton of education, but he's aware of that and he kind of learns more from life as opposed to an institution. But one of the things that he talked about with Joe Rogan was that there are 2 movies that he tried to make for years, neither of which were really horror movies. And the one that really stuck out, because I had actually heard of it before listening to the podcast, but I had entirely forgotten about it, he tried to make a movie called The Broad Street Bullies. And the Broad Street Bullies was the original nickname of the Philadelphia Flyers back when they became an NHL hockey team.
Oh, okay.
And they had such a low reputation because they're in Philly, of all places. And their way of achieving popularity and achieving success playing hockey was by being more brutal than Slapshot. There are clips on YouTube of these players playing on the ice with blood all over their jerseys. They're missing teeth. They got into so many different fights. And I'm guessing they won most of their games and ended up winning a Stanley Cup based on the fact that nobody wanted to skate near them, let alone challenge them as they were skating towards your net with the puck.
I did not know you were a sports movie guy.
I can be, yeah. Like I grew up playing hockey. I wasn't particularly good at it, but I followed sports for the most part. Sports was actually a little bit of a passion of mine before. Like I reminded myself that I've been watching movies over and over again throughout my childhood, and that was the thing that really stuck with me the most. But it surprised me that I didn't know any of those things, even though there's apparently a really good ESPN or TSN documentary called The Broad Street Bullies about how the Flyers got their footing and became reputable for a time. They still suck nowadays, but it really surprises me that this movie didn't get made. And the weird thing is, Zombie doesn't really have a straightforward answer as to why it didn't get made, because even he's not entirely sure. He wants to think that maybe it's because the team was afraid of supposedly glorifying its violent past, even though they let him in, they let him do some research. He was in their archives of all things, and he spent so much time learning all this shit and writing it down. And I just sat there and I'm like, hockey is probably the one sport where kids and adults can equally enjoy it for similar and different reasons at the exact same time. And on the adult end of it, seeing a more dramatic version of Slapshot, because believe it or not, the woman who wrote Slapshot based it off of a hockey team that her brother played for, which, really think about that. Slapshot was directed by a woman.
Hey,
was written.
Have you ever seen women's hockey? It is much more violent than men's hockey. They do not like each other.
Well, the only women's hockey I've seen was my sister play, and if it was as you would describe it, would be a lot more entertaining.
I mean, I had friends in college who played, so I went out and supported their games. So much more violent than I thought.
Damn.
They were like, yeah, we body check
and this
a
is
lot.
the thing I don't understand. Like, hockey being violent, that's not news.
I don't know.
I would wake up at 7:30 to watch TSN Sports Center, and there was that one time where the Senators and the Sabres, all their teams started fighting each other. The goalies skated up to the center of the ice, and when goalies fight, they don't just take off their gloves; they take off their helmets too. They actually get a little more gnarly.
I know a little bit about hockey. I just haven't watched it as much as some people.
But yeah, like, it's so confusing, and if that really is the reason why they didn't go forward with the movie, it makes absolutely no sense. Because look at the other movies that are about hockey.
Goon.
Like Slapshot. And
they made a sequel to Goon.
And Goon 2, you know what, actually had funny moments.
I did not watch either. But I remember seeing the previews, and I'm like,
Goon is fun. Goon is funny. Maybe my favorite performance of Sean William Scott. Jay Baruchel has some good moments because he wrote.
You mean not the poorly aged American Pie?
Jay Baruchel's fine. But anyways, like, Baruchel wrote the first one and actually directed the second one, because Random Acts of Violence was not his first directing.
That's a great film.
I still need to watch it. I still need to find it somewhere. Well, it's
will,
October. It's Halloween. We'll get to it.
We'll talk after the video.
Absolutely.
I will put one out there. One that I wanted to see was Steven Spielberg was tapped to direct The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker.
You know what? That sounds about right.
So The Spy Who Loved Me, I think, is a very well-made film, but Moonraker is not. So I would like to see Steven Spielberg make something out of Moonraker. Let me just describe to you. Have you seen Moonraker?
I have not. I've heard it's incredibly boring.
So Moonraker, they were supposed to make For Your Eyes Only in 1979 with Roger Moore, the Broccoli's producing and such. And
what?
The Broccoli's. That's the family that produces James Bond. Albert.
Broccoli?
Broccoli. Yes, that's the last name.
That is a very unfortunate last name.
I don't know, Broccoli's pretty cool. Anyway, so they came out with, so then they said, we need to jump on the space trend. So they basically did Space Nazis in Moonraker, where basically this guy named Hugo is trying to start a super race with like the perfect men and women, bomb the planet, and everyone lives on the space station creating the perfect human race. That is his plan. So James Bond has to stop it, but they do that by kidnapping space shuttles. It's Hugo Drax. He tries to kill a woman by having her eaten by dogs, which is a very amusing sequence. And the movie, for the most part, has some very interesting sequences. They have a really cool fight in a clock tower. And he throws a guy down and he lands on a piano on a guy singing opera in Venice. It's pretty neat. It's fun. But at some point in the movie, James Bond gets knocked out by these bad guys and put in an ambulance. Now, what do you think happens next? This is what I would think would happen next. Not what happens in the movie. He then is riding a horse after he rolls down the hill out of the ambulance to the Magnificent Seven theme to Q's ranch, where they have a bunch of cowboy-themed gadgets. That's a thing. And then they go to space, and they have laser battles. And Jaws, from The Spy Who Loved Me, Jaws bites a cable car, dropping a cable car at one point. They made it out of licorice, which is clever, but it's really random. And then the whole cable car collapses, and Jaws meets his true love. And Jaws is really tall, so he meets a really tiny blonde girl who's German with oversized glasses, and they fall in love. And there's a glass sword fight. This movie's a mess. I love this movie. It's really stupid. Like I've watched this movie more times than probably the good James Bond movies. Mostly because I'm trying to comprehend why it exists. That's the concept here. But
it takes more than one viewing to understand it.
But Spielberg was coming off of Close Encounters of the Third Kind right around that time, and I do think he could have brought some dignity to a James Bond movie with sci-fi and space and made it this really slow, subtle spy thriller. And he could have brought some of the elements of any other movie that he did, because at that time he was on a roll. He literally made a movie called Jaws. There was a character called Jaws in this movie. It would be better directed. That's my number whatever pick here.
Number 5.
In no particular order.
So, funny story. Considering Close Encounters and Star Wars came out the exact same year, which was 77, Lucas and Spielberg, being friends for that long, were on a trip to Hawaii to kind of celebrate their success. And Lucas was asking Spielberg what he was going to do next, and Spielberg just went, I've always wanted to direct a James Bond picture. And George Lucas said, well, I got that beat, by saying, I have this movie called Raiders of the Lost Ark. And and Indiana Jones has basically become their James Bond franchise. So it's very ironic in that way, and especially, I mean, it's no secret that they cast Sean Connery as Indy's father just because dude is James Bond.
Yeah. Fun fact, when they were on their trip to Hawaii, they imagined the first version of James Bond, which is a film they never made when they wrote a couple drafts of the script. It was the early stages of the Indiana Jones, which was very, very different because they were trying to stay away from,
it was like it was Indiana Smith at
that
that point.
It was, but that's where they first thought of that.
Yeah,
that was one of the canceled movies I saw, and I'm like, no, that's just an idea.
Yeah, like there are other Spielberg movies that didn't get made that I keep forgetting about. Like
There's a few. Like
at one point, he wanted to make Kubrick's Napoleon, which, by the way, isn't on our list just because.
Yeah, Kubrick.
It's another easy choice.
I feel like if Kubrick made Napoleon, it might have been up there with like the Legends of Cleopatra, like it almost bankrupted him. Just because of the budget and the scope and the extras.
It's funny you mentioned James Bond because one of my dad's friends was at the house last week and was talking about a CSI episode where this one person had this one criminal was running a fetish thing with tentacles, and I just sat there and I went, I believe the phrase for that is octopussy.
That is octopussy. Oh, did I mention? Let me just tell you a fun fact about the Bond girl in Moonraker. It's called Dr. Goodhead.
Anyways, my number 4 is...
Yep. Good transition.
Give it up for improv.
We would have given her... Steve Spielberg would have given her a better name, but you're number 4.
My God.
I'm not kidding, that's her actual name. Anyway, what's your number 4?
I'm just going to keep laughing as I stumble.
I was laughing when I heard it for the first time. I got that at like 12 years old, and I'm like, this is a stupid name.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. Okay, so my number 4 is the first of several animated movies to be on this list. One that I didn't actually discover until yesterday before we made this video.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Francis Ford Coppola's Finian's Rainbow?
I know Coppola, but I do not know Finian's Rainbow.
So it was one of the movies he made before Godfather.
Okay.
It was a musical based off of a Broadway show. It was the only musical that Coppola has ever made in his entire career, which, if you look at careers like his and Scorsese's, and they've only seen make one musical, there's a reason for that.
Was it bad?
As far as I know.
Oh.
What I also know was that there was originally in the 50s going to be an animated adaptation of this Broadway show, Finian's Rainbow, but the casting is very interesting. We have Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Oscar Peterson, Louis Armstrong himself. Which, seriously, just...
Cheesecake munching, I'm a cheesecake munching.
I would love to see an animated movie that just had Louis Armstrong's voice in it, because that just...
There was
That just sounds gold.
I feel like there was one.
There might have been. I probably never heard of it. The only movie I did see that had him in it, I don't actually remember what it was called. It was just something that my music teacher randomly showed me
Was
in
he
grade
in
5.
Blues Brothers?
No. That
Seems
was...
like he would be in that movie.
It would seem that way.
Yeah.
But no, we just had Cab Calloway and James Brown for Blues Brothers.
Okay.
But yeah, like an animated movie with such a stellar A-list cast even back then sounded kind of unheard of because it was the 50s, animated movies were still getting their ground, and because Disney kept going bankrupt as long as World War II and its after effects were lasting and costing more money.
Yeah.
This would have been a major stepping stone in the field and in the trade. But the problem is the director, whose name escapes me at this moment.
You're allowed to Google it, it's okay.
No, I got it right here. John Hubley or Hubley, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it.
Not familiar with him.
He was one of the founding fathers of UPA, the United Productions of America animation department. And I believe he was one of the guys who created Mr. Magoo. Because that's the studio that Mr. Magoo...
love Mr. Magoo.
That's, yeah, UPA
Whether
is
it's politically correct or not, I laughed so hard as a child watching Mr. Magoo trying to kill a fly with a shotgun and a flamethrower and destroying his whole house. Freaking hilarious. And yes, the Leslie Nielsen movie has its moments. You ever see him try to cook a chicken? It's amazing.
Anyways, but yeah, like, that Mr. Magoo drawing style, that's UPA. Those were their cartoons.
I am so in for this movie.
The problem was that director got blacklisted.
Oh.
And so, for mainly that reason, the fact that he was the head guy in charge of that production and it just fell under, and I'm guessing there were some influences based on his alleged political influences. I don't think he's ever flat out been confirmed as a communist, but production just completely fell apart at that point.
This is a documentary I want to see.
That would be a really cool documentary. I would like to see that.
And he wrote a whole bunch of movies that are, wow.
Yeah, the Dalton Trumbo story is interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it one of Bryan Cranston's best performances. In fact, I dare say his performance is as big a show off as Trumbo is as a character.
It felt like a made-for-TV movie, but it still wasn't terrible.
Yeah, it
sort of like
I didn't want to say that. In fact, when I saw the trailer when I went to see Steve Jobs, I just sat there and I'm like, I want to see this. I think this is a really interesting
What was that Jake Gyllenhaal movie, Demolition? It felt about as good as that one, where he was like selling houses or demolishing houses. I don't know.
Yeah,
It was about Trumbo was a vol novel for me. I enjoyed it, but I don't know if I'd watch it again. So.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, it's a last minute addition to the list, but it still has a lot of mystery and intrigue surrounding what else really went wrong.
Man, Frank Sinatra in an animated movie.
Yeah, seriously, like just try and picture that.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah. In like the Mr. Magoo drawing style that just would have been so weird. Just think of it as like a Rankin Bass 2D movie.
Man. I would totally watch this movie. Do you have it on Blu-ray? I'd buy it. I just picked up both American Tales on Blu-ray because I like them. They're awesome.
You know what, as a kid, I wouldn't have made it through American Tales, so I never saw it.
Oh, this was one of the very first movies I sat through, I think, on home, because we had it on VHS.
Well, hope you got insurance for how much your tears flooded the house.
I didn't really get the sadness of a child, so I'm going to come in with a pretty obvious one at my number 4 here. Scooby-Doo 3. James Gunn has confirmed this was going to be a project, and he had written a script, it just never made it out of there. Huh. So there were these 2 Scooby-Doo movies, which we discussed in the car on the way here, which we love. Are they inappropriate for children? Probably. Was there an R-rated cut? Maybe.
Oh, definitely.
But I like the live-action Scooby-Doos. I think it captured the spirit of what Scooby-Doo was and then became its own parody of the cartoon. The whole first one with the Monster Island and the strange rock band and the weird monsters and Mary Jane and just all of that was the burping contest at the end. That is 100% Scooby-Doo. And like, I didn't mind the CG Scooby-Doo, and I liked the voices, and I think Fred was perfectly cast. And then they did Scooby-Doo 2, and like...
I've never seen it, so
oh my goodness, Scooby-Doo 2 just goes for the hills. If you thought there was adult content in number 1, you have to watch number 2.
Look, I saw the picture of Velma in the spandex, and I'm just like...
At one point, Shaggy finds a fridge full of potions that can turn them into things, including a woman. And Scooby's a monster, and then there's like a machine where it's all the monsters from the show.
Where they were like in each other's bodies and...
No, but they just fully transform Shaggy's body, and it's the weirdest thing you've ever seen.
Well, it's weird enough hearing Shaggy's voice come out of Daphne's body. Oh, Daph, what's wrong with you? Don't you ever eat?
But they had this strange subplot of like Seth Green, is he bad? Is he good? Is Velma gonna get a date for once? They had what's her name? Alicia Silverstone of Batgirl fame as a reporter who actually turns evil, who's controlling these monsters. They eventually go to this place where all the Scooby-Doo villains are hanging out in this movie, this bar, and they dress up like 60s disco dudes to infiltrate this club, and they have every single villain you saw in the cartoon hanging out in this, like, and they have dartboards of, like, Scooby and Shaggy's faces, and then they have minecart chases straight out of Indiana Jones, and I don't know what the third one would have been. James Gunn has confirmed that he did write a full treatment, that it would have been rated R, and that it would have been the Scooby Gang finding out that they were the real bad guys, and them having to come to terms with that they were destroying people's lives because they really wanted to find a mystery, in short. And I don't know, that just sounds like a different Scooby-Doo to me. Would it have been good? I don't know. Do I want to see it? Yes.
Yeah, not gonna lie, even though that sounds a little ridiculous and a little far-fetched, I do kind of want to check it out for that reason.
I want to see it.
And that's the great thing about the original Scooby-Doo movie, because that's the only one that I've seen. It still has the tone of the cartoon with the adult sensibilities, because honestly, you can make a Scooby-Doo movie rated R so long as it has some connection to the show that we watched as kids, or the movies that we watched as kids, because they're still making like hour and 10 long straight to DVD movies. There's one, I'm not even kidding, there's one where Bobby Flay is one of the main characters because he's Fred's uncle that he never met.
I don't think I've seen this
Fucking
one.
Bobby Flay of all people. I love Bobby Flay.
Which one was this?
I can't remember what it was called.
Watched so many of these damn things, I might have seen it, I might have not.
It was from a few years ago, so I think.
But I
it was
mean,
like
if they wanted to do an already Scooby-Doo adaptation, they just have to do Scooby-Doo and the Witches, which is a 1997 like full-on supernatural like witches literally trying to possess Scooby and Shaggy murder fest. It's dark.
Wait, when you say the Witches, you mean that thing that got remade this year with Anne Hathaway?
No, this is where they go to this school. And it's like a witch school, and they're running around, but then like there's an actual witch like actually trying to possess Scooby and Shaggy, and they can't kill the witch. It's like a full supernatural thing. Like it's far from anything they can defeat. It's really dark.
That'd be interesting.
It's incredibly dark. I can't remember the exact one. I mean, it was very similar. It was like a non-comedic version of Scooby-Doo and the Seven Ghosts. The miniseries they made where Scooby and Shaggy did. Okay, I'm really deep into the Scooby-Doo.
No, that's fine.
So yeah, I would love to see this movie because I mean, James Gunn usually is not bad with sequels. Like even Guardians 2 wasn't the worst sequel I've ever seen. Like I enjoyed it to a point. I enjoyed
parts of it more than the first one.
I enjoyed it to a point. I do think it was I do think they portrayed the character of Drax, but that's just me.
Here we go.
Anyway, that's my pick. Scooby-Doo 3.
Right on.
Whatever they call it.
Okay, so number 3 is, I'm getting an obvious one out of the way here.
Number 2 for you.
No, I've done Broad Street Bullies and I did Finian's Rainbow already.
Oh, so that was number 4 for me then.
Yeah.
That was number 4. Well, never mind.
Yeah. Okay, so my number 3, Fantasia was originally supposed to be an ongoing franchise when it was introduced in 1940. But as most of you know, we did not get a sequel until 2000 with Fantasia 2000. And not gonna lie, I actually prefer Fantasia 2000 because although the celebrity segments can get really annoying sometimes, especially...
There's celebrities in it?
Yes, there is a different celebrity introducing each short film. It's not like the original one where it had that very dull and boring MC who kind of spoiled half the short before he introduced it. And not gonna lie, there are some celebrity introductions that are kind of decent. You have Quincy Jones introducing Rhapsody in Blue, which, I mean, that just sounds perfect here and there. Or you have very serious and stoic James Earl Jones introducing The Carnival of the Animals, where a flamingo plays with a yo-yo. And he gives it, and he reads his introduction, and he's just like, who wrote this? And then it transitions right into the short. Like, at least it acknowledges how stupid it is. There's some stuff that's really out of place. Like, Bette Midler thinks we've never heard of Salvador Dali and calls him the melting watch guy. Like, we don't know anything. And
I have heard of Salvador Dali, I can confirm.
And as much as I like Penn and Teller, them introducing Sorcerer's Apprentice was not a good idea.
That's the only short I know is Sorcerer's Apprentice.
It's also the only one that they replayed, because the whole idea of making a new Fantasia was to like mix in old shorts with new shorts, give it more of a variety art house type of thing. But because the original Fantasia was made in World War II and there was less of a market because half the world was their enemies, they couldn't be as profitable of a studio, it just completely fell through. And the only reason Fantasia 2000 got made was because Walt Disney's nephew, Roy, who was at that point still in power with Disney, kept pushing and pushing for the sequel to get made. And I believe it was him that was pushing for my number 3 choice, Fantasia 2006.
Oh, okay.
Which got folded over in 2002 for reasons that they have never flat out said.
Probably just budget.
Well, I would say that, but here's the interesting thing. There are shorts that actually did get finished and got released on their own.
Okay.
There was one that was decades in the making between Disney and Salvador Dali, of all people. There's actually a short called Destino, which is about 15 minutes long. It's actually on Disney+. And there are other shorts that are very different from the original Fantasia movies, because the Fantasia movies have always been consistently classical pieces of music. They kind of broke the rules a little bit in Fantasia 2000 with Rhapsody in Blue, because that was early 1910s, but that was maybe the best short in the entire film of that sequel. That and the Firebird Suite that had that Princess Mononoke anime style to it, that was pretty cool too. But there were so many other shorts in Fantasia 2006 that would have different varieties of music and animation styles. And of course they all got released individually. Like there's one called One by One, which is a Swahili song from the Lion King Broadway musical.
Right.
And the song was made by Lebo M, who was in charge of the African choirs during the making of the Lion King music. It had this very bright and vibrant that you didn't see in the other Fantasia movies. It was a little more abstract in its presentation. It made Africa look absolutely beautiful. They had this one short that people cry over every Christmas called The Little Matchstick Girl, that is directed by one of the Lion King directors.
I've seen it.
I'm looking for it everywhere, but it's not on Disney+. Half these shorts aren't on Disney+.
So,
there's one where it's a classical piece of music, but it's about a cat whose tail comes to life and detaches from its body, so it's trying to chase it back.
That's cute.
There was a nice balance of comedy and drama, which is something that I really enjoyed about Fantasia 2000 because it balanced out the lighthearted and the dramatic. Fantasia was maybe like 60 or 70 dramatic, 30% lighthearted, and for
I've
me
seen
that
the
kind
original Fantasia back in the day.
And for me, that kind of takes a little bit out of the entertainment because it takes itself so seriously, and there are moments where it's just like, that's great and all, but we still go to Disney to get like a sense of magic and wonder. It's not that I didn't get that from the first Fantasia, but not gonna lie, it moves at such a slow rate, and all the shorts look the same in terms of drawing style that it got kind of repetitive after a while. I didn't get that with the sequel because they mishmashed so many different animation styles. There's one that's actually entirely CGI, and it still fits in with everything.
So my question is here, they made all the shorts, right?
They made a good chunk of shorts. Like, they made at least 4 or 5.
Why didn't they just release it as Fantasia 2006 with what, and they could call it an unfinished product, like a Disney Plus exclusive, and put them all together?
That's what I'm struggling to understand. And the thing I don't get is, had they made this movie, they've never revealed what original shorts from the first 2 movies that they would splice in there. Because they have a ton at their disposal. And for a good couple years, I've wanted to make a video essay about this, about what shorts would get mishmashed in. And I'm still kind of struggling to figure out because it's so versatile in the stories that it would have chosen, the drawing styles, the themes, the music, basically everything. I would pick one celebrity to be the host of the thing, not have multiple ones, which I really don't understand.
You get Brad Bird to be the voice who introduces everything.
We don't need Edna to introduce Fantasia 2000.
Did he do Edna?
Yeah, Brad Bird is Edna.
I just thought he's an animation.
Like, nowadays I can picture Lin-Manuel Miranda being
that would be
MC
good,
because dude's not just a rap and R&B guy. He has the utmost respect for all things music.
Lin-Manuel, that guy, the name I'm having trouble pronouncing right now, he's going to be working with Disney for years.
Oh, absolutely.
He literally has a career just working on Disney films if he wanted it.
Yeah, and like, it's not just, the good thing is, it's not just him writing songs, it's him acting, because like, he didn't write the songs for Mary Poppins, and he didn't write anything towards his DuckTales character, because he's Gizmo Duck on DuckTales now.
I have not seen the new DuckTales. I saw your review of it, but it looks
Yeah, I enjoy it very much. I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite aspects of it, and I'm not entirely sure voice acting is his forte, but
I mean,
as weird as that sounds.
It's got what's her name from Garfunkel and Oates in it, so I ought to.
Kate McCucci is Webby, and she should be annoying based on how high pitched her voice is, but she surprisingly isn't.
Yeah, I should check it out one of these days. It's just so much to watch.
But yeah, Fantasia 2006. I have no idea what they were thinking.
Maybe they just didn't like the son of Walt Disney, and they just didn't want to put it together.
Well, considering they didn't like his nephew, that would have been said something.
Maybe they just didn't like it, so they.
Which is interesting because Roy Disney was the one who kept the more darker aspects in regards to the humor and the content. Cause
there was a Black Cauldron 2 supposed to be in the works. Was he involved in that at all? Or?
I don't think so.
Because I don't know if that would have flown. Black Cauldron just made no money.
No, well, Jeff Katzenberg was in charge of Disney. He would not have let that happen. That Howard Ashman documentary I watched.
Okay.
Dude hated Aladdin. Jeff Katzenberg hated Aladdin the first time he saw it.
How?
I don't know.
Aladdin is magical, people.
Exactly.
Like, does he?
Jeff Katzenberg wanted to get rid of part of your world from Little Mermaid because it's just Ariel singing there, and it's just like that's
a great song.
Exactly.
Like, if anything, I would have got rid of Poor Unfortunate Souls because that just felt out of place.
I don't agree on that end, and
or just any of the stupidity from Prince Eric. He was dumb. I don't
just. One of these days you gotta watch the Howard documentary because it is really good.
I should watch one of them.
But yeah, that's my number 3 choice. We're going on and on about it.
My number 3 choice is something that's been floating around ever since, well, X-Men Origins. Give me the Gambit movie already. I want the fucking Gambit movie.
There we go.
No, seriously, dude.
Oh, man.
I like my X-Men movies, and I admit that every X-Men spin-off has not been very good. But there has been some really genuine, awesome spin-off ideas for X-Men movies. And I will be the first to say it. Freaking love X-Men Apocalypse, so the internet can go away.
I like it.
I love that movie. I did not like the last one, Dark Phoenix, though, but I thought it had moments. And I like what they've been doing with the franchise. And when I watched Wolverine Origins and they had this Gambit cameo, I was like, who is this character? I went and bought the comics. I read all about it. I'm like, that sounds awesome. Make me a movie. I don't know if we would have Wolverine in there. I don't know if it's a Gambit solo movie. I don't even know who they would. I know we had Channing Tatum in there. I would have been fine with that. I think whoever it would have been. I know James McAvoy was rumored before he was going to play in the franchise. I think that's where they transitioned him over.
Really?
Yeah. But I think it'd be cool. I want that movie. I don't know why the world hates X-Men movies. I think they're better than Marvel. I have more fun watching them. I find they have more rewatch value. Are they as well made as some Marvel movies? No. But are some Marvel movies as well made as X-Men movies? No. It's just hit and miss for what you like, and I like my X-Men. I want more classic X-Men. I want Keanu Reeves as Wolverine if you gave me that choice, you know? Like, if you're going to do a new one, that's the guy. That's the guy. But the Gambit movie, it just sounded cool. And then they delayed it, and then they put it in production. They released a teaser trailer at one point or some pictures from on set. It was like a 30-second teaser.
I don't remember that, actually.
And then they released some pictures of like, and then it just never happened. And I don't know why. Fox made a lot of crappy movies, but not my Gambit movie. Yeah, that's my rant on Gambit. I want that movie.
To tell you the truth, because this movie's been delayed so many fucking times,
I don't think it's ever gonna happen.
I forgot that this even existed.
I have never forgotten.
Not gonna lie, I would have been okay if they just asked Taylor Kitsch to come back, because
I'm fine with that too.
While he is a pretty hit and miss actor, he was good as Gambit.
It was probably the highlight of X-Men Wolverine Origins for me.
That was definitely the highlight.
It was cool. I was like, who is this guy? I
his
like
powers, that. His powers were nothing like the comics, but because those powers were so well executed, out of all the action sequences in the movie that do not work at all, his was one that probably worked.
It was the one I wanted to see, and I don't understand why Fox has made so many crappy movies.
Yeah.
So many disappointments.
Yeah.
But they have not made a movie that people would actually go see. I'm sorry. Okay. Y'all made a lot of movies. You made Fan Four Stick.
Yes,
you can't give me Gambit. Great. What's your number 2?
Okay, so my number 2 is going to be the one that would have caused the most controversy had it been released. I discovered this movie while browsing through my Because You Watched This video type of thing. And it was a video from the Royal Ocean Film Society, a very good video essay channel by Andrew Saladino. His video had a thumbnail of Jerry Lewis with a big nose that got caught in a piece of barbed wire.
Pinocchio in World War II?
No, that's what Guillermo del Toro is doing next year. In stop motion, in fascist Italy.
Well, we will wait and see. I'm sure it'll be magical.
Exactly. But the video was called I Lost the Magic, about how directors just lose what they were going for with their original vision for certain movies. Okay. And I found out that Jerry Lewis wanted to write and direct a dramatic movie and star in it to prove that he had acting chops.
What was it?
It was a movie called The Day the Clown Cried.
Okay, I've heard of this then.
About a Jewish clown who finds himself in Auschwitz.
Yeah.
And most people talk about the ending of this movie because the whole thing is about him trying to lift up the spirits of women and children during rough times, which would have been a great concept. The ending involves him accidentally leading women, children, and himself into gas chambers.
Yep. Life is not beautiful, people.
This really would have been a crappy version of Life is Beautiful.
Life is Beautiful is pretty good, actually.
Yeah, which is why I'm much more... Roberto Benigni has fucked up a lot of things in his career, Pinocchio being one of them.
That was weird. Not Son of the Pink Panther, though. He was really good in that. He did his very best with the material he was given.
Absolutely. And I cannot believe that this actually made it into production before Lewis pulled the plug once he was assembling the footage together, watching the dailies, and just realizing how such a movie with such good intentions comes off as being so insulting.
Yeah, that ending.
Because
even Hogan's Heroes wouldn't do that. They imitated Hitler. They did a lot of things. They made fun of, like, this and that, but they would have never done that.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. Hogan's Heroes was a satire. The Great Dictator was a satire, and I'm willing to bet that Lewis, in the more comedic, lighthearted moments, was going for a Great Dictator type of thing.
Fun fact about Hogan's Heroes, there's actually a movie that came before it that they based certain characters on. So Sergeant Schultz in Hogan's Heroes is this dopey German guy who assists the enemy. There's a movie that came out 3 years prior, Stalag 17, where Schultz, the actor who plays Schultz, is a dopey German soldier who's assisting people escaping from Germany. So that's where they base his character upon.
Interesting.
Fun fact, just throwing that out there.
No,
Great
no,
movie,
that's...
Stalag 17. It's one of the best war movies if you haven't seen it.
This is the one that I did the least research on because I just...
You don't need
I
to
want
know.
to imagine just how awful this would have played out. All the things that we were afraid of people freaking out over with Jojo Rabbit, and in some cases still did because people can't fucking read between the lines.
I think Jojo Rabbit toed the line between how much you could make fun of.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's
In
an
fact,
R-rated cut out there with some stuff we do not need to see, but I want to see it.
In fact, Jojo Rabbit basically does the Great Dictator thing maybe a little bit better than the Great Dictator.
Oh my gosh, that Hail Hitler scene with Stephen Merchant is so funny.
You are never going to stop pointing that out.
It's so funny.
I know. Hey, I was there. You saw me walk into the theater with my friends.
Oh my goodness, I've watched the movie so many times.
Yeah, I know. That was your favorite movie of last year, wasn't it?
It was indeed. I've seen it 15 times.
Oh shit, I better get on that.
You don't have to watch it again unless you want to.
Well, I have it on Blu-ray, so I gotta get to that point. But
I just enjoyed it immensely.
This is number 2, not because of how much research I did, not based on how much interest I have in it, but just based on how fucking shocking that this got made in like the 70s or 80s before they finally pulled the plug. Because there are audio and video interviews of Lewis basically shooting himself in the foot, pointing out how embarrassed he was in himself for losing track of what he had set out to accomplish. And it's very important for directors to acknowledge that about themselves. Because you have people like Paul W.S. Anderson, Brett Ratner, and Night Shyamalan who take absolutely no apologies, no criticism for their work whatsoever.
Oh,
like seriously, seeing Shyamalan being interviewed about the negative success of Last Airbender, you just want to punch him for how nonchalant he is about how he thinks he's so great.
Well, I have a few films I buried that no one will ever see and I will never talk about, so I relate. They're in short, I made a film about a killer mailbox, and then I made a sequel to that film. And I spent way too much money on it, and no one will ever see that sequel. I buried that and deleted that footage so hard, you have no idea. It's dead. It was called Return to Sender 2. Anyway, my number 2.
Were you trying to make your own version of Rubber or something?
No, I saw, I thought that people I made the first one, and then I shot back to back. I shot the whole thing. I only used half the footage. No, it's about people who use emails. So a vengeful mailman who got murdered by a dog and fell into a mailbox came back to murder them when they got stuck in the woods.
Fell into a mailbox. How the fuck do you fall into a mailbox?
The dog shoved it. It's complicated.
Well, then uncomplicate it.
I don't know. The mailman was trying to deliver the mail, but the dog was vicious and killed the mailman. And he fell in the mailbox as he was dying, so he became like a half man, half mailbox.
Did he get sucked in the mailbox like a vacuum or something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
okay,
really
all you had to do was say that.
I'm trying to explain it because it makes me sound like a bad director.
Okay, number 2.
Number 2, so this is a film that I've talked to you previously about. They tried to make Lord of the Rings way back in the day. So this was going to be the 3rd film in A Hard Day's Night in the Help trilogy, directed by Stanley Kubrick, The Beatles, Lord of the Rings.
Stanley Kubrick?
Stanley Kubrick.
What the fuck happened?
So they determined that they couldn't make this movie due to technical limitations. But let me tell you what the casting was going to be.
Do tell.
So John Lennon was going to be Gollum. Paul McCartney was going to be Frodo. Ringo was going to be Sam. And George was going to be Gandalf. They approached Tolkien after they realized they needed more money and permission, and he said no.
You think?
So there's not much information known on this, but instead of making that film, they went and made the animated Yellow Submarine. So can you picture just John Lennon as Gollum?
No. No, I can't.
And I mean, what is he gonna be like? My precious. Like that's, and Paul McCartney as Frodo. He's way too tall. I mean, he's got the hair for it. That's the most. But George as Gandalf, I just can't see it. He's the quiet type. You shall not pass. Like, this movie would have been an atrocity. It would have been horrible. Kubrick would have been not a good director if this thing was made. People would have been like, oh, that's the guy who made that. No, you can't. This would have been before he made all these other films. He would have never had the chance to make 2001: A Space Odyssey. Simply because he made the Beatles' Lord of the Rings. I'm glad Tolkien said no, but if this movie existed, this possibly could have been the most hilarious comedy of all time. That's all the information there is on it.
I can't
comprehend that.
You've told me this before, but it just still sounds so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
I
want this in my life.
John Lennon as Gollum?
Yeah. There's one interview about it. There's a little bit of information known. Kubrick, there's very little known. For good reason, I'm guessing.
If it were up to me, I'd pick Bruce Lee as Gollum over fucking John Lennon.
That would be so ridiculous.
My precious.
You know, if you were to do Lord of the Rings in the 60s, you get what's his name? Peter Lorre.
Oh God, that would have
been like the perfect casting.
That would have been perfect. Imagine Mickey Rooney and Buddy Hackett as Merry and Pippin.
Oh my goodness! And who would you put? Oh my god! You just grab Cary Grant as Gandalf. Give him a beard. That would be so weird.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, but this movie was never meant to be made, but it exists in lore out there, and. Yeah, it's a thing.
I mean, it sounds better than that Rankin Bass version of Return of the King.
I know nothing about this.
Neither do I. I saw like a 5-second thing where they're singing and it's just like... You're making Ralph Bakshi look like a damn genius.
But yeah, that's my number 2. So Tyler, without not much is known, let's jump on to number 1.
My number 1 is a movie that probably would have been... Have you ever heard of the movie Food Fight?
Unfortunately, yes.
Do you know... Okay, I'm going to explain what Food Fight is to those who don't know. It was an animated movie over 10 years in the making because they kept running out of money. There was an incident of industrial espionage where someone seriously wanted to steal this movie. Looking at how incredibly god-awful the CGI animation is, because it's not even 90s video game worthy. It's just fucking terrible. Food Fight was basically the Emoji Movie of product placement. You have Mr. Clean, Chiquita Banana, the Keebler Elves, Chef Boyardee, the Charlie Tuna guy, who are all not the main characters. It's very much how Emoji Movie...
Fucking talking dog, right?
Yes. A talking dog played by Charlie Sheen. His girlfriend, who is human but has cat ears, played by Hilary Duff. One of the most recent blackface types of characters I have ever seen, and the sad thing is, it's fucking Wayne Brady, bitch. Seriously, like, was this back when he actually cared about his image? Because this had to have started before he did that Chappelle Show sketch where he totally, like... Do you remember that Chappelle Show sketch?
I do not remember him in the Chappelle Show. I only know him from Whose Line.
Yeah, but, like, there was a Chappelle Show skit where some other guy said that... During the skit, said that Wayne Brady wasn't black enough or some shit like that. Yeah. And then, like, a few weeks later, Wayne Brady and Dave Chappelle do a skit where they're in a car... And it's basically just them, Wayne Brady driving Dave Chappelle around. The first stop he goes, he's just like, back yourself, fool. And the other guys are like, oh shit, it's Wayne Brady, son. Wayne Brady pulls an F-16, fucking annihilates everybody. Right beside, motherfucker. Wait, what are you doing? You're a daytime Emmy winner. You can't do none of this shit. Dave, relax. It's all cool. You ain't gonna snitch on me, are you? No, I ain't gonna snitch on you.
I like Wayne Brady.
I
Not
like
in
Wayne
Food
Brady.
Fight.
No, it's as big of a Transformers black stereotype as it gets, and his design does not help with the buck teeth and
This
the
is
wide
that
eyes and
movie.
everything.
Should
we talk about Eva Longoria with the basically wearing my shirt but with gloves as if she's like blending in? Food Fight is one of the worst movies of all time, and I am genuinely convinced that my number one would have achieved the exact same effect. It is a movie called The Magic 7. It was originally supposed to be an animated TV movie in the 90s.
Okay.
Most of the voice acting had already been recorded.
All right.
There are two setbacks. The first setback being is that two of its major stars, John Candy and Madeline Kahn,
Great people.
both died before the movie got completed.
That's when you cancel the movie.
No, that's when you take their voices out of the movie.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. The other voice actors, I should explain the plot first. There's very limited details about the plot. It is about two boys who are like friends. One of them is tagging along with the other kid's family, I'm guessing on a vacation or something like that. And they meet this dragon who tells them about the 5 arch enemies of the earth and how they have to stop them and save the world through ways that I have absolutely no idea, because there are, as far as I know, are no pictures of this. I tried looking up the Magic 7 10 years ago because I had heard of this 10 years ago. All I got were pictures of dragon tails. Just because of how similar.
Is that the theme song? Is that the one I'm thinking of?
I think it is.
That's how they started? I don't know the rest. Dragon Tales? I think that's in the title.
I don't remember. It's weird.
It's like the
I watched
kids
it
and
all
the dragons, right?
I watched it all the time as a kid, and I don't even remember that
magic
much.
book.
Yeah, a magic book that teleports them to and back. But anyways, so the other cast members, Michael J. Fox, Corey Danziger, I have no idea how to pronounce that very unfortunate name. Those would have been the two main kids. You have that one kid's parents played by Ted Danson and Dee Wallace.
That's weird.
Oh, it gets weirder. I did tell you who one of the other principal actors in this movie is in the car ride over here.
Well, who was that again?
And that actor is Oscar winner Jeremy Irons.
Yeah.
Alongside James Earl Jones, again.
Okay.
Demi Moore.
Alright, that's not that odd. She did a couple animation bits.
Ice-T.
I like that guy.
Ice-T as some guy named Dr. Scratch.
I mean, I like Ice-T. He's awesome in SVU.
He is very awesome in SVU.
Not now, because the show should have ended 10 years ago. Listening to me, writers?
Yeah.
End your show before it gets bad. Don't care about Liv's baby. It's not something I care about.
I cared.
Yeah, for like the first 5 minutes, then you're like, okay, you're out of storylines. I can clearly see this.
I don't know. But, seriously. I'm guessing Ice-T as Dr. Scratch. Jeremy Irons as Frax. Demi Moore as, these are literally letters, U-Z Wanza. And James Earl Jones as Five Toe.
Sounds weird, man.
Was this like a hip-hop musical or something? Because this just sounds so fucking
Hip-hop
weird.
dragons. Well, when you said 5 dragons, I was thinking like 5 elements of Earth. I thought they were trying to do like an early airbender or something.
2 kids and a dragon. And considering John Candy's character was named Smokestack Sam.
That does sound like a white rap.
That does sound like a dragon, out of all things. And I have no idea if this was supposed to be a musical or not. I know that it was supposed to be released on Earth Day in 1997.
Okay.
And considering this is about the arch enemies of the Earth, this was going to be one of those original environmental Earth movies.
Like Fern Gully?
It does kind of have a Fern Gully feel to it.
Okay.
I was going to say Mononoke or maybe a little bit of WALL-E in there. Maybe a
WALL-E
little
is
bit on
weird.
that one.
I never got that movie.
Thank you. Neither have I.
I don't
Never liked
understand
it.
why we needed an hour of a robot moving trash just to see fat humans and hamster wheels.
Never liked WALL-E.
It reminded me of an art film that some people would get and some people wouldn't.
Oh, and there are celebrity cameos
Oh,
from
good.
Magic 7.
Tell me these celebrity cameos.
As soon as this thing gets back to me on this. God. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, all three of these actors play themselves. Kevin Bacon,
Okay.
Bette Midler,
Right.
and Judy Collins.
Right.
Does any of that mix in with those rap names that I had just mentioned to you
What's
before?
the middle one you said?
The middle one is Bette Midler.
She did some voiceover work, I think, at one point.
And, it was supposed to be a musical because one of the songwriters is Robert J. Sherman, son of Robert B. Sherman. And Robert B. Sherman is one of the Sherman Brothers. They hired the son of the Sherman Brothers to write songs for this shit.
Huh.
And I can't believe we haven't heard a single thing about this. I know that this is weird putting it at my number one because I barely described a thing about it, but you just sat there pondering, and that's probably exactly why this should be number one, because we have no fucking idea how bad this could have been. But I genuinely believe that this could have been like the food fight of kids' entertainment, because I've seen Food Fight for Nostalgia Critic, and even through that, I can't imagine how that was supposed to be for kids if that was the original goal.
I watched this at a college party because people thought it was funny.
Well, I mean, it is funny, but not for the right reasons.
I left the party early.
Oh, okay, good.
It was really bad. I just couldn't do it.
We
We watched it back to back with The Room at a college party. That was a horrible little feature. It was bad, people.
Full disclosure, Josh doesn't like The Room anymore based on how many times he's had to sit through it.
I've seen it like 100 times now.
As part of his job.
It's my job to like The Room, I guess.
And wasn't allowed to throw spoons.
I want to throw spoons at Greg Sestero. No, just kidding. I love that guy. He's super nice.
You're just saying that because you have to see him in person every day.
Yeah, I have to see him when they come play the movie. I mean, he's a nice guy. The movie's just crap. Sorry, dude.
You're telling him shit that he doesn't already know, but yeah.
Right. My number one here, I've got my notes here, is an Alfred Hitchcock film.
Really?
Yeah, so it's called The Short Night. Alfred Hitchcock tried for 3 years to try to make this. It's based upon the British double agent George Blake.
Okay.
So basically, it's a prisoner who escapes from Moscow after a double agent, and ends up, and it's this double agent piece. The plot's not super heavy on here, but it was supposed to be like a Bond realistic, like grounded from Russia with Love style thing.
Really?
The first choice, it was supposed to star Clint Eastwood and Sean Connery. That's cool.
That's a combo that I haven't seen before.
Yeah, and it would be, and then it was going to have Liv Ullmann as the wife of the double agent, and Catherine Duvet, I'm getting that wrong, as well as Walter Matthau as the villain role.
Okay, that's out there.
So it was originally going to be written by James Cosden, but he disagreed with the director, and then it was going to be written by Norman Lloyd, and then, well, Hitchcock died. And instead of making this movie before he died, he made Family Plot, which was his last film. So, Clint Eastwood and Sean Connery on the screen together sounds badass.
Yeah, totally.
As spies? Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes, please. Walter Matthau as the villain? Weird. It was, Hitchcock had tried to do Topaz and the Torn Curtain to get the feel before he went to make it, but he didn't quite get it right, and he couldn't quite get the movie right, so he never made it. That's why.
Huh.
But I mean, Hitchcock and Clint Eastwood are like two of the greatest directors of the last 100 years.
Yeah, it would have
been so cool.
I don't know how many times Hitchcock ever made a movie that was based on like a real life person or an event, but taking that and incorporating fictional elements to create something really interesting and suspenseful, that would have been pretty cool to see.
And I honestly think it could have been Hitchcock's crowning achievement, because I think Hitchcock at that point wasn't as good as a director as he was before, and I think Clint Eastwood would have filled in those gaps and really helped him out. And then you have the star power of Sean Connery in the 70s coming off all that stuff, right? And he was willing to play Bond again, as we saw in Never Say Never Again, because he wanted to play Bond so bad again, right? After he realized he made a mistake. So he would have been able to play Bond again at a younger age and be more convincing doing it. Just as a spy, I imagine if he was an evil spy, that'd be pretty cool. Everyone would have been upset, but I
don't think Clint Eastwood has ever played a spy. The closest thing is like Secret Service during In the Line of Fire,
which is a great film.
Which is good, but I wouldn't really count that.
But yeah, Clint Eastwood as a spy in his early years with Sean Connery around.
Yeah.
And then you have basically two of the greatest directors, two of the greatest stars of the 70s and 80s with Clint Eastwood and Sean Connery. That's just a star-studded spy thing. I gotta see.
Totally.
And Walter Matthau's career could have been so much different than from Grumpy Old Men and The Odd Couple. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been, maybe he would have been taken serious as an actor and they would have got Oscar consideration. You never know.
He was capable of being very classy.
Yeah.
It just, he didn't pick roles that often showed that to an extent.
He wanted to have fun, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, with Grumpy Old Men, you could tell he definitely was having fun.
He was having a blast. He was just hanging out with his buddy.
And I'm sure Burgess Meredith would have been having fun if he had any idea what he was doing.
Yeah, he was old at that point. But yeah, this is the movie I would like to see. I like Hitchcock, I like Clint Eastwood, I like Sean Connery, and I want that movie.
Yeah. It really seems like we got less passionate as our choices grew higher, but A, this is not in any particular order, and 2, it's just more interesting when we don't know about these things.
No, there's not much to be. I don't know what to be passionate about. I just like the combo. It's like it's sort of like when you give me a trailer for a new movie. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I'll wait till it comes out.
Tell you the truth, if Magic 7 did get released, I probably wouldn't be talking about it.
Yeah. And
that's the great thing about unrealized projects. There's mystery to it. It leaves you to imagine how this could have played out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the main reason that I wanted to talk about this exact topic for a certain while. And I might eventually be able to talk about other unrealized projects and other video essays.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned that Rob Zombie's hockey movie was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
The other movie that he talked about to Joe Rogan that he tried for years to make was based on a book about Groucho Marx's last few years.
Oh man, I would love to see that.
And how it has a bit of a Sunset Boulevard vibe, at least his last few years definitely has that kind of feel to it.
We could finally figure out what happened to Zeppo, the fifth Marx brother.
Yeah, I doubt that was part of it.
Well, he was the last Marx brother to die. He died in '79 of lung cancer.
Oh. I think
Groucho
it mostly had to do
prior.
with like Groucho's health problems and how he had this one caretaker who might have been a little manipulative and a little abusive as well.
Like Stan Lee's caretakers.
Yes, as a matter of fact. I'm glad I'm not the only person who knows that.
No, that was a thing, and I was like, well, crap.
That asshole ended up producing Gotti, which...
Yes, directed by Limp Bizkit.
No, that's The Fanatic.
Oh, they're both really
Gotti
bad.
was directed by one of the Entourage guys.
The Entourage guys.
Kevin Connolly or something.
Oh my goodness. Entourage is such a dude bro thing, I just try to avoid it so much.
It has its moments.
I'm just like, nah, I'm really...
Speaking of, Bobby Flay actually shows up and fucks Jeremy Piven's wife.
Of course he does. Well, yeah, that's our little video here about movies that were never made. What's the movie you never made? Do you think I'm wrong for liking Scooby-Doo? Fuck you, I don't care. I love Scooby-Doo, and y'all can deal with it. That's Tyler. What are we looking at? What are we looking at on your channel?
Well, okay, I've got reviews up as we're making this for Possessor Uncut.
Mm-hmm.
I bunched together all 3 of the TIFF movies I haven't talked about before into one video.
Yeah.
It seemed like a good thing at first. Maybe I should have done it individually. I'm not entirely sure.
Well, it's debuting soon.
Yes, it is. And look forward to a review of Howard, a documentary about Howard Ashman, one of the greatest songwriters to have ever worked at Disney in such a short amount of time, but leaving behind such a huge impact.
One of these days, I will review the Eagles 3.5 hour documentary if I have no life. Thanks for joining us! Check out Tyler's channel, 2S for fucking fantastic. Bye-bye.